Sex. In a primitive society, it's a natural instinct. People would satisfy that instinct and then move on. In the modern world, there's an elaborate code of behavior that surrounds sexual behavior. Sex can be associated with sin and guilt. People take a wife or a husband for status, and what you have is more anxiety and more misery. Artificial social concerns dominate our lives. We are separated from our real selves. And here, this is a famous word that Rousseau coined. He says that we, as civilized human beings, have been denatured. Rousseau goes so far as to say that civilization even stifles compassion. No Indian, he claims, would not help someone who's hurt, someone who's in need. This is natural. But we turn our backs on the needy, the poor, every day when we drive through the poor side of town. And this is a result, again, Rousseau would say, of civilized society and civilized behavior. We have been taught to focus on our narrow self-interest. We have been ripped from ourselves. And this is a brutal criticism of the entire project of the Enlightenment. Nobody saw this one coming. I mean, this comes out of nowhere. And now, Rousseau understands that the problem of society is permanent. We can't go back. We cannot go back and live primitive lives anymore. That's not going to happen. He knows that. But he did believe that partial reparation is possible, that we can minimize the damage of society and maximize our essential natures. And he lists two primary means where we can minimize the damage of society. And one is education. And Rousseau wrote a book, a novel, published in 1762 called Emile, where he lays out his ideas about education. He believes that education should not be accomplished by schools and books, that we need to devise more natural means of education. And one thing he said, he's influential here, he said it's not natural to let other people raise your children. And this was common in Europe at the time. Among the wealthy, they would hire nurses or governesses and such to raise their children. Rousseau says no, that parents have a natural affection for their children. They will care more for their children than someone hired to do the job. And he was influential here, and he reversed a trend in Europe. Now, he believed children should learn from experience, discover by natural means their relation to the world. I would give an example. You want to know something about geography? Get out in the world and see. See which way rivers flow. See which way, where the sun sets and how you can orient yourself in terms of direction. If you're doing that, you're actually learning something about geography. What would I do if I took a course in geography at the local college here and I made an A? I was able to list and identify the different continents and the different countries and capitals and such. Well, do I know geography? Well, what if you put me out in the middle of the woods with a compass and told me to find my way back to Columbus? I wouldn't have a clue of how to do that. Well, then do I really know something about geography? Rousseau would say no. And this is how people need to learn. And the development of the intellect should be out of real need. And he says people should learn trades, not professions. How to make things. That's natural to us as human beings. How to make things with our hands. Human beings have always done that. But now everybody wants to be a lawyer or a doctor and function with the professions, or an engineer and function in these professions. Rousseau says that is not the natural way. That is not natural to us as human beings. What is natural to us is to be able to make things with our hands, and that's what we should do. A second way that we can minimize the damage of civilization has to do with politics. And Rousseau published another book also in 1762 called The Social Contract. And he's influential here as well. He believed all individual freedoms should be sacrificed to the state, but everyone would be assured of perfect equality. This would create an allegiance to the community. People would pursue the well-being of all. People would work for the general good. This would restore morality, and it would replace narrow self-interest. And if you know anything about Karl Marx and communism, and we will study this later in this course, they are going to be admirers of Rousseau. They think he was a front runner here. So Rousseau is an influential figure on the political scene. I'll move back over here for a minute now. Rousseau is sometimes called the father of the French Revolution. The French Revolution was coming just after him with his ideas here about a type of equality. If you know anything about the French Revolution, he's also been called the father of Romanticism. And the followers of Rousseau will be the countercultural movement against the authority of dominant Enlightenment ideas. Any of you familiar, and you would be if you had me or Dr. Issa for American literature there, if you're familiar with the ideas of Henry David Thoreau. Thoreau sounds much like Rousseau, and you have to remember Rousseau was first. Thoreau would have got a number of his ideas from Rousseau. And so when we say that the followers of Rousseau will be the countercultural movement against the authority of dominant Enlightenment ideas, that's still true today.